Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. So, we've been doing Science on Screen with the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation for a number of years. And tonight is the National Evening of Science on Screen, meaning all the Science on Screen venues around the country, and there's dozens of them, are doing shows the same night. And the thing is with Science on Screen, we don't go to the Sloan Foundation and say, hey, what do you want us to show? We kind of come up with, we find a movie that we like, and then we put it together and we find a guest, and then we bring the guest and we talk to the guest, and we have a dialogue between the guest and you guys, and the guest and the moderator, which is usually me. And I got to say, over all the years I've been doing it, I've had such amazing luck. The people that I've met, sometimes the people that are still in my life from doing this series, it's been so special. But just to do a little inside baseball on this one, 2 months ago, I started reaching out and trying to find guests to do this who were both medical doctors and had an expertise in acupuncture, because that's what this movie is largely about. And I got to tell you, it has never been harder than this. Until last week, it's during South by Southwest. I'm watching 3 or 4 movies a day, and I'm pulling my hair out, and I'm like, how am I ever going to find a guest? I've called everyone. And so I called the AOMA, the AOMA School of Integrative Medicine, and I talked to someone named Perry there. And Perry, and I said, Perry, you don't know me, but I'm at the end of my rope. I don't know. I'm trying to find an MD who can talk knowledgeably about Eastern medicine and acupuncture and in the course of detox. And she was like, oh, well, just get Dr. Shen. And I got to say, I've been going through this stuff for 2 months. And she was like, oh, he's just walking right through the room right now. So that's how I ended up meeting this wonderful person that you're going to meet in just a minute, Dr. Xiaotian Shen. And he has consented to join us, and I gotta say, for my first few moments of talking to him, he's a hell of a dude. We're gonna have a lot of fun talking to are there Dr. Shen students here, or former students? Yeah. We're gonna have a great time talking to Dr. Shen after this movie. But first, let me tell you a little bit about the movie. This is a movie, when we think about the Black Panthers, if we know anything about the Black Panthers, we may just sort of think, oh, there's a bunch of guys going through the streets carrying rifles and who are teaching self-defense perhaps, but the Black Panthers, and you'll see in the story, but Black Panthers, young lords who were working together, there was a lot going on. The Black Panthers were serving breakfast to kids who were not otherwise getting breakfast in schools. Poor kids, black and white poor kids. They were teaching classes in symbolic logic on the streets to teach people how to think better. And what you'll see in this is an initiative from the Young Lords and the Black Panthers to treat drug addiction, because there were over 100,000 heroin addicts in New York at the time in the early 70s. And nobody was really doing much about it. So they look and they see a hospital in the Bronx that's just sitting empty, and they do a takeover of the hospital. Can you imagine the amount of work and thought that went into that? And what they ended up finding is they were using acupuncture techniques to treat people who were in heroin recovery, their symptoms that they were having of what do you call it? The withdrawal symptoms. They were treating that using acupuncture. So that's what you're going to see in this film. It's a fascinating document. It's a fascinating social document. And then because of the whole sort of introduction of the techniques of acupuncture that they're using, it also becomes like a fascinating medical and scientific document. So let me tell you about this guy who's going to join us in just a minute. So he is the medical director of professional clinics at AOMA Graduate School of Integrative Medicine, and he's a master of public health, an MD, licensed acupuncturist, and he grew up in a family of multiple generations of Chinese medicine practitioners. He's surrounded in his home by conversations about philosophies of medicine, and now he's been teaching for many years and practicing for many years. And we're so lucky to have him tonight. I've just wanted to have Dr. Shen come up and say a couple of words before we watch the movie, and then afterwards we'll sit down in a couple of chairs on this stage, and then we'll have a great conversation. So please take the stage now, Dr. Xiaotian Shen.
Thank you all. Thank you, Lars, as well. And I think this is, you call it as Science on Screen night. So this is actually an opportunity for the community, especially the mainstream community, to give some a recognition to what we have been practicing for a very long time that is called alternative medicine and acupuncture. So a lot of my friends are here today, and to my great surprise, and I thought I didn't tell anybody. I think the reason they came here is not because they come here for me, I think it's because they come here. The reason because of you is because you give us the recognition of what we have been doing all the time. So I'm looking forward to this opportunity to share with everybody about what we're doing and why we're doing all this, how what we're doing can be a useful tool to you and help you in many different ways in your life. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity.
My pleasure. Thank you. All right, think up your best questions, stuff you've always wanted to know, thoughts that you have while watching the movie, and we will see you guys again in 80 minutes. Enjoy the movie. All right, here we go. All right, I'd like to welcome back Dr. Shen to the stage. Come on up. All right, thank you so much for being here. Now, I should mention that Dr. Shen obviously is qualified to talk about medical aspects here. It's a whole lot of social history. We could have an entirely different discussion about the social history here, but I wanted to be sure that we had a chance to talk about some of the, not only the issues about acupuncture, but perhaps even some of the issues about medical ethics that sort of intersect our lives.
That's right. Talking about the medical ethics, this movie reminded me my earlier career life when I was in China as a resident doctor in the hospital in China. I don't hold a MD title here in the U.S., but I have been a very proud acupuncturist in Austin area for over 20 years, and I have seen the changes and development of acupuncture and alternative medicine developing our community in the past over 20 years. I think one of the ethical issues related to medicine is that medicine as a part of healthcare, medicine is not the only part of the healthcare. Medicine is a small part of the healthcare. Medicine as a part of healthcare need to empower people, need to give people the choices, need to help people to make their life better. That will be the fundamental principle of medicine and healthcare, including acupuncture as a part of the choices of modern people's healthcare, is going to support that moral principle of healthcare. In the past, acupuncture was not only allowed by the mainstream in New York, but also in Texas, acupuncture has only become legalized since early 1990s.
Really?
And before that, practicing acupuncture in Texas was illegal. So I know some acupuncturists were, castrated for practicing acupuncture, even in early 1990s.
That's amazing. I had no idea. So I want to get some questions from the audience in a few minutes, but first, if you don't mind, tell us, at this point, so many people use acupuncture. It is so popular. It is so widely used. We know it works. Why does acupuncture work?
Yes, that's a good question. But talking about acupuncture has been so widely accepted, I have to say that at the beginning, when people ask me when I started my career here in late 1990s, last century in Austin area, people, when I say I'm an acupuncturist, the common response from people will be, what is acupuncture? And now when I tell people I'm doing acupuncture, people say, oh, I'm afraid of needles. Acupuncture is probably not for me. So nobody asks the question what acupuncture is anymore. So as you say that acupuncture has gained so much popularity among our general population. How acupuncture works is that, generally speaking, we look at the health or our body conditions from the traditional Chinese medical perspective and so-called conventional Western medical perspective very differently. From the Chinese medical perspective, we view the body as an integrated whole system. So one of the principles of acupuncture and Asian medicine, including Chinese medicine, is so-called holism. We try not to cure the imbalance of one system by throwing another system of your body into imbalance. So we view your whole body as integrated whole system. So that leads us to a practice that could be slightly different from the conventional Western medicine. For example, when we treat your, let's say, withdrawal symptoms from substance misuse or abuse, right? We don't only view that as so-called withdrawal symptoms. We look at a condition of a human being as a whole system. We look at what organs have been affected in this process of the substance abuse or misuse. We look at your emotions. We look at your sleep. We look at your whole system instead of just one system. So that would be a difference between the practice of conventional Western medicine and Chinese medicine. In regard to the scientific evidence of how acupuncture or other elements of East Asian medicine, including Chinese medicine, works, there are a lot of research done. I know somebody's going to ask me this question, so I did a little research this afternoon, and we didn't use that. I didn't use the paid medical database we have in our school. Instead, I used the widely accessible Google Scholar search engine, and I used the keywords acupuncture. Let's say I use the keywords acupuncture withdrawal symptoms or acupuncture addiction, and then mechanism. There are literally thousands, even to, if you depend upon what keywords you use, even tens of thousands of articles in this field. So the general consensus how acupuncture works for detoxification is that it stimulates the secretion or the balance of serotonin and other chemicals as well, including opiates, and also stimulates the brain electric activities inside your brain cells and improves the circulation in the body. So there are many different mechanisms working behind the acupuncture and herbal medicine. It depends on what conditions you treat. So usually the scientific explanation of how acupuncture works for those conditions will be different. But there are widely accessible research on the internet.
Even though it's practically impossible to do a double-blind study on acupuncture, because what would your placebo be if you were to do that? I don't know how you would exactly do that, but
there are some studies could be done double-blinded. It seems like you really get something from the science on screen. Of course, the
work with me here, Doc.
you are very knowledgeable, I have to say. And one example was that a study published on JAMA in the field of using electroacupuncture treating urinary incontinence among older women. That's a study that is that meets all the rigor, scientific standards of modern research, including the double-blind. In that case, I think the double-blind was done through so-called sham acupuncture. There's a whole set of techniques for you to set up that. So there are, I have to say that actually there are some studies in the field of acupuncture can meet the very rigorous standard of scientific research.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I wonder if anyone in our audience, because we've got some pretty knowledgeable people in our audience here, they've learned it from you. I wonder if anybody in our audience has a question or even just a comment or a contribution they would like to send up here for the discussion. Anyone? Everyone's very frightened. I see a hand in the back.
The general theory on that is that in a primitive society, when people suffer from illness, especially the pains and all kinds of symptoms, they really rub certain areas in their body. And through that, nowadays considered to be so-called acupressure, they discovered that certain points could alleviate certain symptoms or some sets of symptoms. Therefore, they documented their findings about the interaction between the stimulation of certain areas, certain points, certain lines in their body, and the response of their symptoms and illness. And they have accumulated that knowledge through thousands of years. Then they gradually start not only just to use the stones, not only just using their fingers to press on so-called acupuncture points or pressure points in the primitive stage of our human history. They gradually started to use bamboo acupuncture needles, bone acupuncture needles, then later bronze acupuncture needles, iron acupuncture needles, steel acupuncture needles, etc. So they gradually improved the instruments they used to stimulate certain areas or points on their body in response to different set of symptoms. And that is a very gradual development process. So acupuncture is not invented by just one person or one generation of people. It is inherited knowledge for many thousands of years within very large group of population. I don't know if that answers the question.
All right, we talk about thousands of years. So have there been innovations in acupuncture within recent human history? Have there been any innovations, or are we pretty much practicing acupuncture now as it would have been practiced with bone needles or bamboo needles thousands of years ago?
When you come to our clinic, you are not going to see any bone needles or bamboo needles. We use a single-use sterilized needle, stainless steel needles on everybody, and then discard all the used needles. We do not reuse those needles. I saw in 1970s the acupuncturists reuse the acupuncture needles.
Yeah.
The other innovations will be in the areas of diagnosis and treatments. In terms of the areas of treatment, one very common device you will see in any regular acupuncture clinic will be electroacupuncture machine.
Electric.
Yeah, electroacupuncture machine. For example, one of the studies I mentioned a little bit earlier that was using electroacupuncture to stimulate the acupuncture points in the sacral area to reduce the symptoms of urinary incontinence among older female patients. That was published on JAMA. I think it's June issue of 2017 on JAMA. But we use the electroacupuncture to treat wider variety of conditions, especially pain management, and sometimes also treat some functional disorders of the internal organs as well. So the needles we're using are a lot more sophisticated. We use electroacupuncture machine. We also use infrared lamps. The other devices we use have also been improved. For example, the Maxa devices we use it, etc. In terms of in the areas of diagnosis, we widely utilize the diagnose tools used in conventional Western medicine. Mm-hmm. And we usually will encourage our patients to first consult their primary care providers and obtain conventional Western medical diagnosis before they come to see acupuncturists. So we utilize their diagnosis to help us in traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture to make a more specific or more targeted diagnosis as well. So that will be probably the biggest innovation in the practice of traditional Chinese, which is the utilization of modern diagnostic tools.
Sure. Which I'm sure must be very helpful. Do you find that often practitioners of what we might call orthodox Western medicine refer patients to acupuncturist or to holistic
A lot.
practitioners?
A lot. We have patients say, "Oh, my neurologist told me you should get an acupuncture treatment." Or actually, yesterday I had a patient who's a doctor, so I addressed him as a Dr. XY in the waiting room. The other patients were just looking at him, and he's a doctor. And he told me in the room, he said, "Well, if this doesn't work, I'm going to give myself a steroid shot." I said, I said, "This is my work. You can save a steroid shot." So I also had other doctors, surgeon, wanted to get acupuncture treatment for sciatic pain, so he didn't have to get a surgery for sciatic pain. I have multiple patients who are nurses. We have a nurse patient who's going through cancer treatment, chemotherapy, etc. And so the short answer to your question is yes. We get a lot of referrals from the conventional medical communities. Has become more and more natural for the conventional medical doctors consider acupuncture, Chinese herbal medicine, as an alternative tool for them to take care of their patients' healthcare needs. And also the healthcare providers themselves are a lot more open to receive acupuncture as a treatment modality to take care of their own healthcare needs, as I mentioned earlier.
So from being illegal to being referred to by doctors in only 30 years. That's pretty amazing.
That is amazing. And so when I watched the movie, I just realized, wow, there's so much wonderful history about acupuncture in the United States I didn't know about. I feel like I've learned a lot.
How many of you knew about any of that stuff? Because a few of you did, yeah. Because until I saw this movie, I had no idea about all of that going on, that clinic and the sort of power to the people angle of it. Was there anything that you saw in the film where you looked at it and you were like, "Oh no, we knew they're doing it wrong," or "We know how to do that better"? You know, it's like and also I wanted to ask the questions. It's like it seemed like almost everything was concentrated on the ear, and that seems different from the many of the acupuncture treatments that I've seen.
Oh, I'm going to have very long answers to that question.
Please do, please.
First of all, my first response was that I said, wow, I need to go back to the cinema more. I need to watch a movie.
Damn right.
Yeah. I haven't been in the cinema for a while.
Yeah.
And I started to realize the smell in the cinema and the sound effect in cinema. And also the visual effect in cinema is so different from me staring at my big screen at home. Put that part aside. And talking about the history of acupuncture, so I knew very little about that part of the history of acupuncture before I watched movie today. In terms of what else we can do besides they have done in the movie by needling the points in the ear, I would say there are more nowadays we could do to deal with the conditions mentioned in the movie. We have more tools. We could do general body acupuncture. Acupuncture and Eastern Asian medicine is a modality that tends to customize to individuals each visit condition, instead of one-size-fits-all treatment for everybody. So every time when you come into a clinic session, we're going to find out what is happening in your body this time. And your condition is different from the patient next door, even if you share the same Western medical diagnosis, let's say hypertension or diabetes. But when we look at those two individual patients, they're two individual human beings and people. So their conditions are different in our eyes, and the diagnosis they receive from us from the acupuncture perspective will be different as well. Therefore, the treatments will be different. So acupuncture, East Asian medicine will be individualized. So when we are treating individuals battling the withdrawal symptoms from either smoking cigarettes or substance abuse, we tend to individualize our assessment, our diagnosis and treatment to different individuals. Instead of only using ear acupuncture nowadays, we'll probably do a wide range of acupuncture sets on that individual for that individual's different conditions. So that will be something we're going to be doing slightly differently instead of only the needles on the ear. And we do still utilize so-called NADA, the ear acupuncture, as a very important tool to treat a lot of those so-called withdrawal symptoms. And very commonly we use that treatment protocol to treat a cigarette withdrawal. We actually, before the pandemic, we had a free community acupuncture clinic for smoking cessation. We use those we use those ear acupuncture very often. Besides regular body acupuncture, ear acupuncture, we can do scalp acupuncture, we can do Chinese herbs. We can incorporate a lot of different treatment modalities into the entire set of the care for that individual.
So nicotine withdrawal is considerably different from opioid or opiate withdrawal. And yet the working with the ear, with the points in the ear is still what you would use there. That's very interesting.
That's right, because I often tell our patients that not only acupuncture, but in my personal opinion, I don't think there's any medicine in the world will make you to make that hard decision that you want to stop smoking cigarette or you want to stop using heroin or other substances. Mm-hmm. You have to be that person responsible making that decision. Then the acupuncture treatments or even other modality of treatments can help you to deal with the withdrawal symptoms and help you to transition from one stage of your life to a new stage of your life. Now, in terms of the withdrawal symptoms from substance abuse or smoking cigarettes, there are some similarities in those two types of withdrawal symptoms. There are some difference in their degrees of the suffering in the process of a transition, but the primary symptoms are very similar to each other. Therefore, some of those similar treatment those treatment proctols can be used for one set of symptoms and also another set of symptoms as well.
Mm-hmm. It's not one size fits all in terms of the treatment, but there are similarities there, yeah.
There are some similarities, yes.
I bet we've got some really good questions from the audience now that people have had some time to think. I see a hand all the way in the back.
Yeah, I was curious to learn more about the criminalization of acupuncture in Texas, and curious who were like the major forces against it. Was it the pharmaceutical lobby, or was it anti-immigrant forces in the legislature, or what accounted for the continued criminalization of acupuncture in Texas?
That part of the, I was very young at that time, in early 1990s.
You were a child.
I'm not quite a child. I have been licensed as a doctor in China, but I was not here in the U.S., in Texas. I was licensed in early 1990s. I think the most resistance was from the established interest groups in the healthcare community. Because if we have one more group of healthcare providers coming into this industry or business, and a part of that cake is going to be cut from the table.
Especially if yours works a little better.
So there's still, that's right, yeah. Over interest.
among, among the, because of the medical association.
But you should interview her.
I
She
know
knows a
this
lot
is
about the
this is
history.
what's wonderful about these is you look out in the audience and you've got experts in the audience sometimes, so that's remarkable. But yeah, it's very much what you sort of speculated, which is that that others who had sort of a vested interest in keeping the status quo, didn't want to change so much and allow other people in.
That's right. But back to one of the first questions you asked me earlier was that what is the ethical principle in any medicine? I think any medical practice should be centered around the patient's interest, and whenever you give the patients more choices, you empower the patients. And that is the best for the patients. You don't have to force everybody to receive acupuncture. Just make it available for people whenever they need it, whenever their doctors recommend that. There's something there for them to use to help them with their health problems and improve their health outcomes as well. So again, I want to echo what you have just said is that this is not, on the surface, it is about the political fight over the control or resources or revenue, but at the very bottom of it, did we really take the patient need into consideration? Did we take the people's need into consideration? Does that benefit people more if we give them more options? Or it actually protects the people more if we take away some of options from them? So my answer is that the more options, the people will be more empowered in their decision-making process. And that is best for people.
Excellent. So on that note, with that round of applause, I want to ask you a few questions about what it is you're doing over at AOMA. Or AOMA, I don't know how
yes.
AOMA, because when you got here, there were a number of your students here, and they were wonderful people, and they just lit up when they saw you. So it seems like you must be doing something right over there. So tell us what goes on over there.
I'm different from most of the other new immigrants. I have never changed any jobs ever since I landed here in Austin, and AOMA is the only place I work for. What we do at AOMA is there are two core tasks that we usually do at AOMA. One is education. Another one is patient care. As you saw in the movie, patient care can provide the services to limited amount of people by limited amount of acupuncturists, healthcare providers. At a certain stage of that healthcare so-called business, you have to think, what can we do to increase our capacity in order for us to serve a wider range of people, to serve a bigger community. So that is where our educational part of the business comes in. So AOMA is basically a higher education institution for acupuncture, for Chinese medicine, and also for East Asian medicine. Along with that core business we have devoted to, we also provide a wide range of healthcare to the members of our community. We have a professional clinic where you're going to be treated by licensed acupuncturists. We also have very wonderful student intern clinic, and most of the folks that shared at me a little bit earlier were either our alumni or our culinary students. They provide wonderful services in the student intern clinic where we provide very affordable care to the community. We also have a herb store. I saw Iona earlier, one of the nice young ladies. We greeted a little bit earlier. She works at the herb store. So we provide not only acupuncture treatment, but also alternative medical materials, including the herbs we gave to the patients.
Well, I did a little bit of, believe it or not, this is going to just shock people. I did some research when I was first calling around, and the graduate school has extraordinary reputation. It's kind of considered sort of the Harvard or the Princeton in the whole country in terms of the education that you're providing. So it seems like you're doing something right over there. Dr. Shen, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure these guys are
Thank you
thankful
for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.